All right, cool. Or
Cool.
do you want to do a countdown or
No,
should I
that's
restart?
it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Dude, my intros are always so awkward because I always fucking like start the thing like right after I like started talking.
Yeah, yeah. I'll go
Anyway,
though.
the viewers are used to it. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Vijñapti. I'm joined today by my bro, Stephen Hobbs Jr. Stephen
Oh,
studies molecular biology, something, something. Stephen,
yeah. So
give
yeah,
a little self-introduction.
yeah. So I in my fifth year PhD program at U of I doing MCB, so biology program. I mostly focus on liver cancer. So that's my background, liver cancer. I do more about cell culture, my studies to see how does a protein called GAP1 cause
Mhm.
cancer. So this cells, mice, stuff. So all about the biology, right? So
Okay, so very like hardcore like
yeah,
bio stuff then.
molecular biology, mostly like proteins and RNA and DNA. So mostly the molecules, like
Okay.
not like the bigger scope, more like the smaller stuff, like things that you can't things that you can't see with your eye. Yeah, can't see with your eye. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Gotcha. Cool.
yeah,
No, that's pretty cool.
yeah,
It's interesting because I study social work. Obviously, social work is not like a science. It's like a very broad way of looking at nature or you
Mhm.
know society or whatever, and then you look at
Yeah.
like biology, which is a very like reductive
Yeah, it's more like
looking
really
at it.
it's yeah, it's like one like it's kind of like not really open ended. It's more
Mhm.
like oh, that's that the protein is that does that. So it's not really open ended as like science, so science is, but also it's could be used to like learn more things about the world and universe together. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, maybe not actually. I mean, so we're talking about today we're going to be talking about a book titled what's it called? The Myth of Normal.
yeah.
Trauma, illness, and healing in a toxic culture. And I'll give a little intro, and then I want to hear what you think about it. So the author for this book is Gabor Mate, and Gabor Mate is a very famous he's a really famous medical
Yeah.
doctor. It's about addiction and a lot of like behavioral health, social health, like again, like addictions, parenting, stuff like that.
Mhm.
He's looking at it through a medical lens because he's like a medical doctor.
Doctor, right? Yeah. Okay.
And he wrote this book titled The Myth of Normal, and it's a book that's looking at health from a social lens. So it's very much interested in, what kind of how do social problems or social issues or the environment affect health. And it's good, and I really like this book. The reason I invited Stephen on for this episode is because this chapter is specifically talking about genetics and epigenetics and
Hmm.
the relationship between genetics and epigenetics and the environment. So I figured to start us off, Stephen, maybe you could give us a little rundown, just very basically, what's genetics and what's epigenetics?
So we have two things. So genetics basically is your DNA. So it basically what's in your genome, right? So I can basically trying to see. So genome, so genomics basically is what you have in your DNA, what is made to make the protein, right?
Hmm.
So when you talk about like epigenetics, that's basically talk about how does the DNA expression, how does the DNA turn on or off over time by
Hmm.
different factors, could be your environment, by your diet, by your social situation, by your stress, could be anything. But so at times like certain genes can turn on or off based by different factors. That's what we call epigenetics. Epigenetics, basically the study of things how we change DNA over time. Yeah, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So genetics is more referring to like the genetic sequence or like the
Yeah, like or it could be like yeah, like inheritance, like you can inherit from your mom and dad, or kind of like how does your DNA replicate, right? So like epigenetics basically means like how does the DNA turn on or off
Mhm.
given over time or by a certain situation, by your diet, how does like genes turn on or off? Sometimes it's called expression, like gene expression, like expression called expression. So
Yeah.
so basically like certain genes are on or off in different cells. That's why you have a neuron, like liver cell, you have like a heart cell, because different genes are turned on or off between
Mhm.
different cell types. So that's why you try, yeah. So it's mostly the same genome-based basis. Certain genes are turned on or off. Like they're transcribed at different rates compared to other cell types. And basically, what I think Dr. Monte said basically that like the stress and like social situations can also really like affect how our genes are turned on off over time.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, what did you think about this chapter, man? This is kind of like
yeah,
I feel
very
like kind of
interesting.
the intersection. Oh, go ahead.
You know, it's interesting. Yeah, I think telomeres is very interesting because like they do like shorten over time, like basically like a marker for age. Because basically
What did he say
once
about telomeres?
basically they're like a marker for age, basically like a I guess like a clock. Because
Hmm.
basically every time your DNA replicates, you lose a certain telomere off your DNA. And
Hmm.
basically, it's like certain diseases basically they can be associated with different amount of telomeres. So you have less telomeres, you have more chance to get disease.
Hmm.
So I think Dr. Mate is saying basically that over time, certain factors can change our telomeres, which can actually change our gene expression of certain genes. I think that was what I got from that.
Hmm.
Maybe I can read it again, see I can go back and see it again, but I think that's what I got from that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what I remember too. And
Mm.
kind of like you're saying, I guess like would it be accurate to say that telomeres are kind of like a metric of biological aging in a sense?
So basically it's when the cell age, so biological age would be a telomere like length, I guess. It is the short, you more
Mhm.
older, but if you're longer is really younger, so it can tell you a clock based on your cell I guess if it's a biological clock, yeah, that's correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was interesting because I think he was able to demonstrate, I forget trying to look at the
Oh,
study here. Some some lady at McGill University.
yeah.
Anyway,
Oh,
like I guess he looked at different like social factors and he found that demographics who are more likely to experience racism or
yeah, yeah,
sexism, and specifically Black women, I think they looked at
yeah.
had
Yeah.
older genetic. I don't know how you'd say that.
Yeah, I think like
Their telomeres
the
like
telomere
were
is shorter. They're shorter. I
showed
think
more signs
telomeres
of.
are shorter. Yeah, yep, yep.
Hmm?
So like the telomeres of the black woman were shorter than the other racial group in gender. I
Hmm.
think that's what you said. It was like if you do telomeres, basically they're very shorter compared to other groups, based on the social environment and the social stress and environment and stuff, poverty
Hmm.
and whatnot. But those are seen to be have less telomeres, like less like shorter telomeres than the average person has. So that's basically how our environment can
Yeah.
change our genome based on stress or like poverty or famine, whatever. Yeah, it all can change our genome. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and there was another study that he refers to where I guess there was like a very natural like experiment that took place in the same province that he lives in Canada,
Okay. Yeah. Canada.
where
Yeah. Yeah.
basically there was this snowstorm that like kind of wiped out all like social services in the area, and
Wow.
there was like a group of women who had all had children like around the same time. And when you
Mm.
controlled for different factors, that group of children, because of the stress that their mothers experienced during that snowstorm,
Mhm.
they
Yeah. Hmm.
really didn't have any resources at all. They showed like yeah, all different kinds of like
Hmm.
I guess genetic stuff that is like, hey, like your health is bad in this way or this way or
Hmm.
this way. And so much of it was, attributable to that event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because I think I know a person who's in my same program, and she does kind of I think neighborhood violence, like gun violence, like shooting violence and stuff, like kind of Chicago, kind of really bad neighborhoods and stuff. And it's not basically that um, when you have the same genes, when you have the same conditions, certain amount of people are more prone to have lung cancer progression in that certain setting compared to other settings. So, but basically, it changes the genome too. It changes the genome a bit to the epigenetic regulates the genome to have more genes turn on and off, and that makes you
Hmm.
more prone to cancer that way too. So that's
Hmm.
why, yeah, that's why it can change cancer, health disparities, cancer, the disease, diabetes, like stroke and stuff. It also pre change basically your epigenetics for sure. Mhm.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, you're saying that she's looking at like kind of a similar thing where she's looking at social
Yeah.
problems, and I
Social
guess
part, your social environments, yeah, yeah, and how that can change like lung cancer progression. Yeah.
at
And
like
basically that's
from like a genetic perspective.
yeah, so basically like how the basically epigenetics factor. So like
Mm,
how certain genes are turned on or off during the like stress environment or during the stressful times, that can change the amount of lung cancer progression in the body. Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Tell us a little bit about your research with mice, or even, maybe similar research in the field. I know this isn't like exactly the same stuff that you're studying in your
Yeah, it's not
experiment.
exactly the same stuff. So what I do basically is more like cancer models. So I work on a protein. There's a very big protein called scaffolding protein. I could get
Mhm.
one. We're
Right.
trying to see how does it cause cancer. It's overexpressed in cancer, so we're trying to see like the exact domains it uses and basically what the factors it uses to cause cancer and progress cancer. Um, it's not really mostly genetics based. It's more like a protein interaction based kind of thing. But I do a lot of PCR. Like I do like more gene expression too. Like I measure genes that are up and down in the presence or without the protein being there in a cell. So I really
Hmm.
know a lot about gene expression for sure because I do it like almost every week. So
Hmm.
I think basically like definitely there are certain proteins that can definitely have a factor in epigenetics, but I'm not sure if my protein gap one has that effect or not. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, I do know a lot about like the genome and how it changes over time, how the genes can be transcribed, turned off or turned on, by different factors or different pathways and stuff. So do know about the process that Dr. Monte does say in his work for sure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. So you're kind of like, I guess if there's like a ladder of
Mhm.
like levels of biology, I guess you're kind of like maybe like one
Yeah.
rung down
So
from.
I'm not sure if you know about the
Mhm.
central dogma. Basically was basically things like DNA turns to RNA turns to protein. That's like the dogma of biology. So I'm on a level of proteins mostly. Uh, so I do protein work. So like I do RNA sometimes, but mostly on protein level. So I do like DNA,
Mhm.
RNA, protein. So I'm on the protein level mostly. Yeah,
Okay.
of the dogma. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So yeah, so you're like in that world. Maybe not exactly,
That's
but
actually in the telomeres. Well, I do know a lot about it because I mean I do read papers about it too because I read papers that are based on cancer biology, and there's a lot of papers that really show you about like, how does the genome change over time, how the genome can be changed to cause cancer or reduce cancer burden. So
Mhm.
I know a lot about that from that papers, but I don't do it like myself, but I do know a bit about it from reading papers about other labs and other studies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. No, that's really cool. And I thought it was really interesting that
Mm.
I guess the effects are reversible of
Yeah, yeah, yep, that's true. Yep.
telomere raveling or unraveling or whichever one it is.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because some certain basically, so certain genes can be turned on, but also they can be turned off as well. So it's kind of like reversible too, like on off switch.
Hmm.
You know what histones are? Histones.
Hmm.
Basically, those like your DNA is not by itself. It's basically with a protein nucleus. So like it wrapped on a protein, the very tight. And so basically, we have like a histone would be turned on by a protein marking called a chemical marking called is it acetylation? Yeah, acetylation. Basically, you add a compound to the histone, and that
Hmm.
turns on the protein expression. No, sorry, turns on the gene expression, right? So you turn
Hmm.
on the gene expression, but also, if you add a methyl group to that histone, you turn it off. So you turn it off expression of that histone. It's not that clear, but basically, you can turn on or off gene expression that way. So you can turn it on and off like a little switch, whatever. So it could be like turn on, it could be bad, turn off, it could be bad. You don't know. It really depends on the context of the gene, but certain genes, if the high expression is bad, or certain genes, if the high expression is good, certain contexts, but it really depends on the certain contexts for sure. Yeah.
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 And not to state the obvious to you, but it
Mm.
just seems like there's so much more research that can be done in terms of like
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yep.
Like you don't know exactly like the research that your coworker is doing.
Mm.
Like there must be so many different factors that she has to
Yeah,
control
yeah, it's
in
Joe
order to
for you.
figure
It's
out
very
like
complex. Yep.
yeah, in order to figure out like how much of the influence is due to the adverse social effects and how much is due to like all this other stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors too, because a lot of pathways in the cell that can change a gene expression as well. So there's a lot of work, there's a lot of things going on in that
Yeah,
situation. So yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Biology is very emergent in that way. Like you kind
Yeah, yeah,
of like, oh, like biology is kind of like a very hard science. I'm not saying it's not science, but it's very like
yeah,
it's kind of like psychology in that way, in a sense of like there's just so many different factors to consider. But
yeah,
when you study biology, it's like, oh, there's also many, many different factors that can influence, this single behavior or this single.
yeah. So it's not just one thing. There's a lot of things can factor into a certain like even like cancer or like cell division, gene
Mm,
expression. It's like it's not just one thing. There's a lot of things that can really factor into it for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Cool. So consciousness.
Hmm.
How do you think this chapter, like, what impact do you think it has, like, on the discussion of the mind? So I guess some like,
Hmm.
is there a way to tie in telomeres to like neurons? Do
Yeah,
neurons?
definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Because definitely, I mean, all the cells have telomeres because all the cells DNA and all DNA have telomeres on their end. So,
Hmm.
um,
Okay.
yeah, basically, I guess if you like the neurons in your
That's
brain,
pretty obvious then.
yeah, 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 that definitely have effect. Like, even the stress, environment stress, and like anxiety and like depression, that can definitely involve the genomics, epigenetic effect in your cells. So, like even your stress or environment, even like poverty or this like famine too. So that can change the amount like the activity of your neurons because if your genes are turned on and off your neurons, you have different neuronal activity of a certain
Yeah.
neuron. So they definitely can factor into consciousness for sure. But I'm not sure
Mhm.
how exactly, but it definitely has a like yeah, that's the research too. That's how we get there. But
Yeah.
definitely you have to see basically how does like I'm not sure there's been work about neurons about epigenetics. There probably has been, but I never seen it before. But it probably has been some work into that how that causes disease, like maybe like Alzheimer's disease, or maybe even anxiety and depression, and other like neuronal based diseases too, like even brain cancer too, brain cancer. So,
Hmm.
but I yeah, so that's linked to the brain for sure, and that can definitely link to consciousness in some way or fashion, at least one way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like kind of like cognitive functioning, maybe.
Yeah. Like at the base, yeah, basically, yeah, that can, yeah, really, because the neurons do everything for you. So, if those are changes that can definitely change consciousness at least some way or some point. Yeah.
Yeah. And they even Mate refers to like experiments on rat behavior as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like, looking at like autoimmune diseases or whatever. And he finds that like rats who are parented in a certain way, so meaning that like they got more nurturing from their mother, or they spent more time like, in their family units or whatever, that
Yeah.
they actually gave the same uh parenting to, or I think their offspring gave the same parenting to um their
The
subsequent,
offspring. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
but like one generation removed. So they were able to see that it was like a purely genetic, um,
Thing. Yeah. Yeah.
like inheritance of this behavior, in this case, like parenting style. So yeah, like even at the level of behavior, like, big genetic and epigenetic effects on behavior and how species like, or
Mhm.
animals like act with each other.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely cap that too. But neurons, of course, control our behavior. So if those are changed by the genome being altered or turned on or off by those changes, that definitely have an impact for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I'm thinking
Uh,
like when they open people's brains and then they pick them with like a little needle or something and then you
yeah.
arm or something.
yeah, because basically those are controlled by your neurons, like the electrical activity of those neurons that control your movements and nerves and stuff. And
Hmm.
like I think certain like I mean if the genome is being changed, but like the genome not the like not the genome but the epigenome sorry should have the effect on the cell behavior. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
hmm yeah,
Wow. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, that's all I had. Did you
Cool,
have anything else that you wanted to mention? I think we got to everything that
cool.
I
Love it.
wanted to talk about.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'm thinking curious about like how we can connect. Yeah, you're saying I can connect consciousness to connect this thing to consciousness. So like, how do you think? Like, I mean, if we like, you think basically if you're more stressed out or even more like in a very bad environment of our social lives, or like maybe that can change the genome to epigenome to have more consciousness or less consciousness, or that's what you think?
Um, I don't know if you can measure consciousness like that.
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, I'm saying like, yeah, I'm curious, like, basically, is our,
Consciousness
yeah,
obviously has this
yeah,
inherently like biological component, like you know what I
yeah,
mean?
of course, yeah,
And
the
I
neurons, yeah, the neurons itself, yeah, yeah,
yeah, like you need a brain to have consciousness, so far as
yeah,
I know, right?
yes, that's the first step,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, like I don't know if like you could measure
yeah, like
consciousness.
consciousness, yeah, yeah,
There is actually one model that I kind of like a lot. Do you know Michio Kaku?
no, or oh wait, I think I may, that sounds familiar.
He's he's a physicist.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I know him, yeah, no, guy, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
he's pretty famous and he has like a bunch of books and like TV shows and stuff.
yeah, I know the guy, yeah.
He wrote a book called the hell is it called? The Future of the Mind or something like that. Something
Oh,
like that. He's like a futurologist or like he'll try to like
mm,
predict how science will turn out like many years from now.
yeah,
Anyway, he wrote this book and he gave like a very a pretty compelling model, I think, where he's basically like you can think of consciousness in a very basic way as something that responds to a stimulus and
mm,
some sort of feedback loop to um, make that response like more or less automatic. So he gave the example of a thermostat, and he's like, well, when a thermostat gets an input of the temperature of the room that's like higher than whatever you set
yeah,
it to,
it
it'll
changes, yeah,
cut the circuit until
yep,
the temperature drops to whatever that
yeah,
uh,
thing is, yeah,
temperature is set
just
to, and
set
vice
to
versa if it's too, yeah, and vice versa if it's too cold.
mm.
And so he was like, maybe we could think of like a thermostat as very basically conscious in that way. I don't think he was actually saying thermostats are
Yeah,
conscious.
no, but it's like an example, yeah, I know, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think that's a good model, and it
mm.
can be kind of cool to like, I don't know, maybe like order like, the more neurons you have, the more conscious you are. But I think there are some animals that have like more neurons in the human brain than we do. I could be wrong about that. I
But
could,
no, like more animals, or people, or like species, or
yeah, like certain animals that their brains have more neurons, but actually I think that's wrong. I think we
I'm
have the neurons.
not exactly sure. I'm not sure about that, but maybe yeah, I'm not sure about like I'm not sure if like the neurons are better or like the different brains region are different, like the brain regions are different, or I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that could be changed by the epigenome can be changed by that too. So
Hmm.
all together, yeah, somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else about chapter 4 of The Myth of Normal that you wanted to cover?
Nope. I think that was all. Yeah. So
Cool. All right. Well, this was cool.
yeah,
Thanks for your perspective, Stephen. And it'd be really cool to have you on to tackle maybe a few more of these chapters in the
yeah.
future. We
Awesome.
can
I'm down
talk about
anytime.
like
Yeah.
medicine and yeah.
Yep. All right.
Cool.
Have me on, dude. Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
Peace
Take
out,
care.
man. See ya.
Peace.